What you are about to hear are 3 real accounts from real people. These stories were never fully explained. Turn off the lights and don't listen alone. Story 1, The Man at the End of the Hall. It was the winter of 2019 when Sarah Calloway moved into her new apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building in rural Ohio. She was 26, freshly divorced, and desperate for a fresh start. The apartment was cheap, too cheap, but she needed it, so she didn't ask questions. The first week was normal, quiet, almost peaceful. Then, on the 8th night, she woke up at exactly 3:14 a.m. She didn't know why. There was no sound, no movement, just a feeling. The kind that grabs you by the chest and squeezes until your breath goes shallow. She lay still under her covers, eyes adjusting to the dark, and that's when she saw it. At the end of her hallway, a man. He was tall, unnaturally tall. His head nearly touched the ceiling, and he was just standing there, completely still, so facing her. She couldn't make out a face, just a dark silhouette with shoulders too wide and arms that hung slightly too low to be normal. Sarah told herself it was a shadow, a coat rack, anything but what it looked like. She reached slowly for her phone on the nightstand, never taking her eyes off the figure. Her fingers found it. She turned on the flashlight. The hallway was empty. She exhaled, laughed at herself quietly, told herself she was stressed, sleep-deprived, adjusting to a new place. She put the phone down and closed her eyes. Then she heard it, a slow, deliberate knock, 3 times, coming from inside her closet, directly beside her bed. Knock, knock, knock. Sarah didn't move, didn't breathe. She stared at the closet door as the handle slowly turned. She screamed, grabbed her phone, and ran out of the apartment barefoot into the freezing hallway. Her neighbor across the hall, an elderly man named Mr. Briggs, opened his door after hearing her screaming. When the police came and searched the apartment, they found the closet empty. The back panel, however, had been pushed inward, as if someone had been inside and tried to get out. The building manager later told her, reluctantly, that the previous tenant of that apartment had reported the same thing. A tall figure at the end of the hall. 3 knocks on the closet. That tenant had disappeared 6 months earlier. They never found him. Sarah moved out the next morning. She still sleeps with every light on. And she never ever looks down hallways in the dark. Story 2. Something was following us on the trail. Marcus and his 2 friends, Dev and Cole, were experienced hikers. They had done dozens of trails across the Pacific Northwest and never once had a reason to be afraid. Nature was their comfort zone, until the night they decided to hike the Blackwood Ridge Trail in Washington State. It was supposed to be a straightforward overnight trip. 8 miles in, camp at the ridge, 8 miles back at dawn. They had done harder trails in worse weather. They weren't worried. They set out at 4 p.m. with plenty of daylight to spare. By mile 3, Dev noticed something odd. The forest had gone completely silent. No birds, no insects, no wind rustling through the leaves, just a thick, suffocating quiet that pressed against their ears like cotton. Marcus joked that it was just the altitude. Cole didn't laugh. At mile 5, as dusk began to settle, Marcus stopped dead on the trail. The other 2 nearly walked into him. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. They listened. saw footsteps, slow and heavy, moving parallel to them through the trees about 30 feet off the trail. Whatever it was keeping pace with them perfectly, step for step. When they stopped, it stopped. When they walked, it walked. Dev shone his flashlight into the trees. The beam cut through the dark and landed on nothing, just trunks and shadows and that horrible silence underneath the footsteps. Cole suggested they turn back. Marcus agreed. They turned around on the trail, heading back the way they came. The footsteps turned with them. They walked faster. The footsteps kept pace. They started jogging. The footsteps jogged. They ran. The footsteps ran. And then the sound moved. It was no longer beside them. It was behind them. Close. Too close. Marcus said he could hear breathing over the sound of his own footsteps. Heavy, wet breathing. Like something enormous drawing air through a broken nose. They burst out of the trailhead parking lot at a full sprint and dove into Marcus's truck. He got the engine started, floored the accelerator, and didn't stop driving for 20 minutes. When they finally pulled over on the highway, hands shaking, Cole pointed at the back of the truck. So there were handprints on the tailgate, 3 of them, enormous, with fingers too long and spaced too far apart to belong to any human hand. They reported it to the Forest Service the next morning. The ranger who took their statement listened quietly, wrote down their names, and then said something that Marcus has never forgotten. "You're the 4th group this month to report something on that trail. The other 3 didn't all make it back to the parking lot." He wouldn't say anything more after that. The Blackwood Ridge trail was closed 2 weeks later with no official explanation. It has never reopened. Story 3. The phone call from my dead mother. This last story comes from a man named James Elroy, who submitted his account to a paranormal forum in 2021. He swears on everything he has that every word of it is true. His mother passed away on a Tuesday in March. Heart failure, sudden and without warning. James was 34 at the time and had spoken to her the Sunday before. She'd seemed fine, happy even. They had laughed about something on the phone. He can't remember what anymore, and that kills him. She was gone 2 days later. He spent the following weeks in a fog. Grief does that to people. Makes the world feel like it's happening behind thick glass. He went through the motions, the funeral, the paperwork, clearing out her house, feeling nothing and everything at the same time. 3 weeks after she died, his phone rang at 2 a.m. He almost didn't answer, but when he looked at the screen, his blood turned to ice water. The caller ID read, "Mom." His hands were shaking so badly he nearly dropped the phone. He told himself it was a glitch, a contact error, some misfired piece of data in a server somewhere. He let it ring. It rang 11 times. Then it stopped. He sat in the dark of his bedroom for a long time. Then, heart hammering, he called the number back. It rang once. Then a voice answered. It was his mother's voice, exactly as he remembered it. Warm and familiar and unmistakable. She said only one thing before the line went dead. "James, don't go to the doctor next week, please. Oh, promise me." Then static. Then silence. James had a routine checkup scheduled for the following Thursday. He had completely forgotten about it, made the appointment months earlier. He had never mentioned it to his mother, never mentioned it to anyone. He almost canceled it. The call had shaken him so badly he could barely function. But a rational part of him pushed through. He went. The doctor found a tumor, but early stage, completely treatable because of how early they caught it. The doctor told him that if he had waited even 2 more months to come in, the outcome would have been very different. James never found an explanation for the call. His mother's phone had been disconnected the day after she passed. He checked the records. No call had been made from that number that night, but one had been received. He has the log to prove it. He still doesn't know what to make of it. But every year on the anniversary of her passing, he calls her old number and lets it ring, just in case she picks up. She never does. But sometimes the ringing stops before voicemail. 3 stories, 3 encounters that defy explanation. Whether you believe them or not, something made you listen all the way to the end. Sleep well tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with more stories from the archive. Subscribe so you never miss one. The Haunted Archive never closes.